The excitement is building because it's a celebration. We are 50 episodes in, each one a behind the scenes, candid conversation or live strategy session with me. This moment is a milestone, and I cannot tell you how many guests have shared excitement about their intros and how good their conversations have been and how their audiences have just loved hearing this side of them. Well, today you're going to be a part of this three-part conversation on what it takes to lead inside high-powered partnerships, what it takes to make these decisions that expand your reach and make movements in communities. So do not leave. I want you to grab your notebook and pen or your favorite electronic tool and pencil because you're going to need to take notes. And my friends, this episode is a tad longer than usual, so you may want to listen to it over the next couple of days. But in segment one, we have Lucinda Cross from Activate Worldwide. Activate your leadership, being a David and leading others.
There's a Goliath. And if there's a Goliath, that means there's a David coming. So we can't just sit here and focus on Goliath. We have to focus on the fact that there's a David who has a small pebble coming.
And then that's followed by segment two with Dr. Rhonda Simmons of the Simmons Empowerment Foundation Incorporated, Boundaries, Leadership, and Balancing It All.
No matter what you have to say, no matter how critical the conversation, leave their dignity intact, because at the end of the day, you're still going to need that person.
And then leading up the rear, you may want to listen to this segment on a separate day. All right. But we have Lena West from CEO Rising, The Power Shift, Why You Control the Room, and Untold Stories of Influence.
I truly believe that competition, not only is it a false construct that keeps us busy, but also it's not even real, because in order for competition to actually exist, I have to be trying to be Felicia, and Felicia has to be trying to be me.
So we're talking about how this level of collaboration creates power shifts, the strategies behind scaling in leadership, and how to position yourself where the biggest opportunities take shape. Collaboration is sacred work. Let's go. I'm Felicia Ford, the growth strategist for creatives and changemakers. And if this is your first time joining us, welcome. This is the space where we do more than talk about change. We create it, we influence it, we get things done. And if you haven't yet started something, you just may get the inspiration to do so. Every conversation on Impact Innovators is designed to help you rethink and reposition your brand so that what you're building becomes this iconic force in your part of the world. We're all about communities, okay? We are talking about more growth, greater reach, deeper transformations. How do you solve a real problem? For many women of color, at-risk youth, and those impacted by the criminal justice system, the path to reclaiming power and building a better future feels uncertain. Lucinda Cross is changing that. As a media personality, leadership trainer, and the visionary founder and CEO of Activate Worldwide, Lucinda has empowered over 250 women and youth offenders to return to school, gain employment, write books, and start businesses. Her work has reduced recidivism and fostered economic development and financial independence in her community. Listed as Forbes' Next 1000, Verizon Small Business Comeback Coach, and honored with a Lifetime Achievement Award by President Barack Obama, Lucinda's influence spans from national platforms like CNN, BET, and Essence to Fortune 500 companies like Nike and Delta. Her expertise is sought after for initiatives supporting women in transition and mobilizing communities. As a part of our 50th episode, Lucinda joins us in this segment where we explore how empowerment, leadership, and collaboration are moving and changing the landscape. Lucinda.
Wee, that sounds juicy. I'm like, who is she talking about?
I'm sitting here like, oh, she has been there, done that, created the table, invited others. I'm so excited to talk to you today.
I'm excited to be here. Yes. And I don't know if they can't see you, but you are just gorgeous and
Thank
glowing.
you. Thank you. As are you. I'm so honored that, we connected in the NASDAQ circles community, and here we are. And of course, talking about collaboration, but I think sometimes people forget what it means to show up in community. You are working with some of the most vulnerable populations and seeing people in these states where they may not be the best at community just yet, but they need it and they want it. I'd love to hear from your words what your work has been like and why you have decided to approach this work.
So are you talking about the unique community?
Yes.
Or the women as a whole, right? Because that's
Right.
this it's two different, in my journey, understanding community as a woman and how am I coming up and showing up and serving,
Yeah.
it's quite different than being someone who was some system impacted as a
Mhm.
youth
Mhm.
and now in position to help and change and support other young girls and women who are system impacted to say, you're not your number.
Yeah.
And so the community looks quite different, although we kind of get to the same point in our journey.
Mhm.
But what I would say is, when you feel there's the isolated, let me keep quiet. I don't really want anyone to know what I've gone through and the pain that I'm going through because I've made a mistake or I've been
Mm.
involved in something that I'm not proud of. Or there's the other side to say, am I doing enough? Am I really dealing with imposter syndrome? Do I really like women? Do I really like myself? Do I have mama issues? Right? Do I understand what
Right.
it is? Am I just showing up just to get something? Or am I also showing up to receive? Do I have a facade placed?
Mm.
Did I forgive myself? So looking at that, the community, what I see what was missing in my experience is that the lack of community within self.
Yeah.
Right. And let's pull all the pieces together. We wear so many different hats, but let's pull all the pieces together to say, am I in a position to serve? Am I healed enough to show up? Right. Without being feeling like I'm taking things personal or feeling
Mm.
as if I'm being attacked or feeling as if, oh, this reminds me of,
Yeah.
or feeling like, you know what, let me gatekeep because she just may get a little further if I give her this resource because she seems a little more activated than I am. And I got a lot
Ooh.
of things going on. So it's really looking at how do we show up with community with ourselves? And then how do we want to bring that out to the community we live, work, and serve?
I'm hearing you share this, and I can just imagine how you are sharing these same words to the women and girls that you work with, because I hear self-awareness. I hear doing the work, right? We hear that term a lot. And I don't know if anyone takes the time to really go into it and to dig into it. And I hear through your tone and as you're telling the story, you have a story yourself. And it's usually those of us who are as passionate and as influential who've had that walk ourselves and have done the walk and are now here to say, let me tell you about what it looked like. Right? Let me tell you about how hard it was. Let me tell you about, and I won't take that from you because I really want to hear that from you, but you hit on a part of why sometimes community is not possible for people because they have not yet healed and they're bleeding on others
Mhm,
because they want to be further along than they're ready for.
mhm.
But share with me what does that look like for someone who's going through that where I want to lead, I should be leading, I should be, and my business should be here or I should be here, but they're not yet ready. We applaud
Mhm,
you for that, right? But
mhm.
what steps do they need to consider before they step out?
Yeah. And looking at some of those steps, before stepping out, knowing that you're a leader, which means that you're able to say, I'm willing to lead, but that means that I don't have to be the face. I don't have to be all in the videos, all in the shows. I'm willing to lead, which means I'm willing to be vulnerable and understand that I don't have to be the jack of all trades. I don't have to know all the things. It's okay to build and collaborate and partner. Whether it works out or not, it's still a part of the learning lesson, right? You're strong as a leader. What oftentimes happens in leadership, I will speak for myself. What often happens times in leadership and with some of the clients that I've worked with and spoke with is, well, I don't want anybody to take my shine, or I'm not ready to come out in the forefront. I'm okay in the background. But you say you're okay in the background, but you've been complaining while you've been in the background.
Right.
And you say you're in the forefront and you're doing the leadership, but you really don't know what's going on. Why not let someone else take control? It's nothing wrong with that. It's nothing wrong with detaching from a thing and saying, I do need a bookkeeper. I am horrible with my finances. I love to make money and I love to spend money. So where are we going to go with this as an entrepreneur, right? So for me, I had to be honest and say, Lucinda, you like to spend and make. So where does this fit? Where does investments fit? Where does family legacy fit? You got to get off of this YOLO train. It's not going to, you have kids in college, you want to be able at some point to sit back in Hawaii, sipping Mai Tais without worrying about anything. So how are we going to scale this business? And so that means as a leader, I have to say, I don't have to be the smart one. It's okay to bring others forward. So does that mean that I don't apply for certain grants and things like that? Maybe it means that I take a step back to get myself in position to get access to funding and capital. It wasn't a matter of there wasn't enough access to funding and capital for me. It's that I didn't put my business in a position and a leadership position to lead. Yes, I am the face of the business. TV's great. Books were great. Speaking is great. Honorariums were great. Net 45s that from contract gigs were great. What wasn't great was my business structure.
Right.
And that was, so am I being a leader for Lucinda as the brand? Absolutely. But am I allowing my business, Activate Worldwide, or my nonprofit, Activate Your Life, stand as a leader on its own to support? No, I wasn't.
Yeah.
And so I had to take a step back to say, I'm lacking leadership skills in these areas. The business should be a leader as well. It's its own entity. And so for anyone who's wondering, is it my time? It's really taking an assessment and a step back to say, what's next for me? And what do I need to do to prepare to get there? Not just me as a whole, but my business. Is my business grown enough? You could have a business that's been running for 15 years, but it's still a baby.
Yeah.
And you still are operating that business as if you're in your first year.
Right.
No legal structure, no bylaws put together, no board of directors. Some of your bank accounts is a little janky, so it's like, yeah, you've been in business for 20 years. Whoop-la, looks great on Instagram and all of those things.
Right.
But if we look back and pull back the covers, and that's what happened to me years ago. I was like, things are great. But when I had a major opportunity as a quote unquote leader in this industry and speaking to women and encouraging women to do it, I didn't put my business in a position to scale. And so I had a great opportunity. I had a media feature. It was a whole snowball effect. I had my product, my vision board kits. Walmart wanted them. They got a contract with Walmart. I couldn't fulfill fast enough. So if I knew what the goal was, I didn't put the proper pieces in place so that when that contract hit send, it's ready to rock and roll.
Right.
So going down because you're not prepared for the success, it could be a good problem, but it also shows the lack of leadership in my business as a leader.
You've touched on so many things here. I'm hearing, oh my goodness, accountability, right? Ownership, responsibility. So many people nowadays say, and I want to say, I can't remember the guy's name, but the one who wrote the book, the 7 Habits of Highly Successful People, Stephen
Yes.
Covey, right? He says we should take 100% responsibility for our lives, because when we do, we remove power from other people, we remove excuses, all the things. It's like all about this readiness, this positioning that you're talking about. And I love how you've brought that in to say, as a leader, we've done these things to get to this point, but your mindset might be behind you and your feet want to go forward, and you think like, oh, wait a minute, I can't move,
Right.
and I thank you for your transparency and sharing about that experience with Walmart. But I'm going to assume that when you had that aha moment, it was okay. Because you just seem like the type of person that's like, well, I'm not going to sit in this.
Mhm. We going to rally the troops. Call the Boys and Girls Clubs. We need everybody. Where's the kids?
Right.
Who wants money? I need y'all to start packing these kits. We need to get them prepared and shipped out.
Right.
But I caused myself unnecessary stress, anxiety,
Mm-hmm.
and burnout.
Mm-hmm.
And that was the challenge. And then when you do that, what ended up happening was there's missing elements. A box is missing this.
Mm-hmm.
A label is not on this. The shipping went to the wrong person.
Mm.
So, but of course, this course correct and you make changes. But that's why I say it's important to look back and take a step back to say, what do I need to have in place in preparation for the win?
Right.
Not when it comes.
Yeah.
In preparation for who do I call? What's going to happen? How are we going to roll this out? We got to already have the winner mindset. That's what leaders do. And you also be willing to fall back when the fire comes to say, okay, what do we do now? So it's all a learning lesson. And I love it because this whole thing of community leadership we're constantly learning. There's no mistakes.
Mm-hmm.
There's no failure in it. You just learn how to do better, so.
And that's one of the things that those of us who are in this space, those of us who invest in growth and development and self-awareness and, in the book section, the self-help section, those of us who know that that is the key. It is not about the skill set. It's about the mindset. It's really not even about the talent. It's about the work that we put in, right? It's about the work and the mindset. For us, I think, and those who are in the leadership spaces, that is a given. We know that, right? But those that we're serving, that may be the one thing that gives them the launch pad to take off from sitting there and thinking like they're a failure, or the new business owner, or the new nonprofit leader, or someone who's newly hired or promoted into a position, to say, you got to look within, right? In order to be in community, you said it earlier, being in community with yourself. Share with us a little bit more, Lucinda, how being in community with yourself positively impacts that forward movement.
That's good. You got some juicy questions.
Oh,
Being in community it allows you to give yourself grace, which gives you a different perspective in dealing with other people and setting different expectations. So in that whole space of community and leadership, you have to have a whole different lens. Not everybody thinks like you. Not everybody has the same upbringing. Not everybody has the same training. Not everybody has the same creative mindset. But what ends up happening is we'll feel as if someone is not meeting expectations because they're operating in their 80% of their creativity, and we're measuring it up, which could be our 20%, right? And I always say, we can't count someone else's floor to what we think is our ceiling, because it could be the opposite way.
That's
right.
good.
And so it's, someone else's floor may be your ceiling, or someone else's ceiling may be your floor, so we really have to give ourselves some grace and then be able to say, am I able to deal with people, humans?
Yeah.
Right. Some people, it's just like, you don't need to be around nobody. You need a whole nother right? Because you just don't get it, but Even for us, as we show up as women, as entrepreneurs, as leaders, as community builders, because all of this is community. At the end of the day, entrepreneurship, career growth, school, it's all, the foundation is community.
Mm-hmm.
We
Mm-hmm.
all have to learn how to deal with each other, build with each other, grow
Mm-hmm.
with each other.
Mm-hmm.
It's seeds and water,
Right.
seeds, water, and sunlight.
Right.
So it's not counting anyone out. It's not counting yourself out. It's not looking at even someone's background.
Right.
And then also, my thing is, I'm huge on self-checking. So before I even got into empowering women, I said, you know what? I need to repair some things in my thought process with my mother. I need to also look at, how am I communicating with my daughter?
Mm-hmm.
Because I can't go out here and talk to all of these young girls, and then I'm not even in a position to heal certain relationships and understand certain relationships.
Yeah.
That's the girl who will forgive her man 20 times but won't forgive her friend one time.
Wow.
So it's like, how are we giving not only ourselves some grace,
Mm-hmm.
but in showing up in community, giving some grace to the community, and holding a standard,
Mm-hmm.
and setting boundaries,
Mm-hmm.
and
Mm-hmm.
okay to say, this doesn't work for me. This is not how I operate. I operate from a place of excellence, but
Right.
also saying, I'm willing to be open to learn, to see how things can be different.
Right. Right.
It doesn't have to be my way.
Yeah. Forgiveness. I don't think that we think of forgiveness as one of the key components of building community. Um, we don't think of forgiveness, and we may not think of grace as things that are a part of community. Looking at social media, that space, of course, operates differently than what it looks like when we're actually in person with others. But, some of that humanistic thing comes to light when we're, right next to someone. And what is forgiveness? What does that do for someone? We know, but what can that do for community? Again, I know people throw this word around, but when I think of community, I'm thinking, let's do life together for a season or however long we have together, right? But why is forgiveness such an important thing? I think it's really important that we really drill in here right now, especially with the recent administration changes, all the DEI things that are coming down the pike, and just like I would say the implicit but very explicit attack on
Yeah.
others.
I'm picking up what you're putting down. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And it's unfortunate, right? It's
Right.
unfortunate. Sometimes there's a Goliath, and if there's a Goliath, that means there's a David coming. So we can't just sit here and focus on Goliath. We have to focus on the fact that there's a David who has a small pebble coming. And
Listen,
if we focus on what the Goliath is doing and cutting down, that's what Goliaths do.
you better say it.
They bust down, they break down mountains, they tear up foundations that was already formed before they got there. They do all of that. That's what Goliaths do.
That's what
Where's
Goliath
the David?
do.
Where's the
Where's
David? There's
the
the David coming. And the David doesn't even know that he's king
Ooh.
or queen,
Okay.
right?
Right?
So it's like, who's next in that position? It's us.
Yes.
It's us. Each pebble that David had to throw is a community.
Mm.
So we have to be willing to stand up and say, okay, when David throws the rock, am I in it? Am I loud enough? Am I strong enough? Am I focused enough? Am I forgiving enough? Which means that, to me, when I hear forgiveness, I hear I'm no longer standing in a place of fear of being hurt, disappointed, upset, angry, unforgiveness. You harbor all of that. If
Right.
I'm willing to say I forgive, that's such an open space to say, I'm willing to release some of these fears.
Right.
I'm willing to release some of these, concerns. So yeah.
Yeah. You're saying we're gonna move with strategy and not with emotion. Yeah. I love that. Now, when I look at your bio here and I see the initiatives that you've led and the lives that you've impacted, um, especially with working with women who are navigating some of these times. What does it look like for you to guide these women from feeling stuck to embracing that Goliath, or excuse me, that David inside of them? Okay, there we go.
So you were saying in terms of the
What does it look like to help others to identify that David inside of them?
uh there's a book Tony Robbins had, I believe it's called The Giant Within.
Mm,
You heard of that book?
I have not.
Well, The Giant Within. So with that, David inside is saying, I don't care what entity is big or strong or taken over, stress,
Mm,
relationship. Do I have a divorce? Do I get married? Do I have a child? Do I try again because I lost the last baby? Do I go for the position? Do I just decide to jump and take a leap into entrepreneurship? That David inside says, I'm going to give it a shot and I'm going to keep shooting forward and to see where does this take me?
mm-hmm.
What's the worst thing that could happen? And when we look at it like that, what's the worst thing that could happen? We learn a lesson and we grow on.
Yeah.
We learn a lesson that may be a little ouch, but we continue to grow as
Mm-hmm.
leaders and community builders
Mm-hmm.
and providers and supporters and believers. I think at the end of it, that David within is to say it's a belief meter.
Right.
I tell God all this. Listen, I want to max out my faith card,
All right.
right? So yeah, listen, what you said I could have, you should. Okay, yeah, yeah, yeah. Let's go for it. I need them to look at me crazy. I'm not convinced until they say, "Ma'am, this is a $3 million home and is."
Right.
you know, but, really maxing out that faith card, especially when it comes to health.
Mm-hmm.
Where's that David inside that you need to tap into? Because here's the thing, no one is coming to save us.
Mm-hmm.
We can't expect other people to make us happy.
Right.
We can't put that pressure on other people to figure out our lives.
Right.
We got to walk this thing together. But you know how hard it is for us to walk it for ourselves? We can help walk somebody else.
Right.
Oh, girl, you got it.
Right.
Go for the job, go for the business, go for the, you got it. And then we sit back like, one day, someday, maybe I'm going to do it for myself.
Mm-hmm.
And then when you feel that you get the lack of support, you don't feel so strong. David didn't look for the support from his brothers. He said, I'm going to handle this Goliath on my own. And sometimes we got to dig deep and say, because there's also stronger entities that are backing us up.
Mm-hmm.
So it may not come from your sisters.
Mm-hmm.
And that's okay. Your family may not show up at your book signing, and that's okay.
And that's okay.
You may not have your best friend at your wedding, and that's okay.
Yeah.
The fact is that how are you being the David for yourself? A lot of times we cannot expect people who don't believe in themselves to believe in us. People who don't show up for themselves to show up for us.
Yeah.
People who haven't even taken one step to do something for themselves, to be cheerful for us. They think we're crazy.
Right.
Okay.
Okay.
Don't stop the stone, and don't forget that you still stand as David, crown on your head or not.
I don't know if you already have a workshop or a speaking engagement that you have incorporated this David and Stone in, but I can't wait to hear that Lucinda went on somebody else's stage and shared this story.
It's coming. It's coming. It's
I
coming.
hear it. I'm loving every part of it. But that's a part of the work that I've witnessed of yours, is turning these stories into actual statistics, right? Like realizing like this is you. This couldn't be you. you're planting those seeds, like you said, you're planting the seed. You might not see that seed grow, but you've shown some light on a person. What do you say to the person who is embracing that David in him or herself and they don't have anyone around? What do you say to them to keep moving forward in the right direction?
Mm. Build community. Find someone to link arms with. Whether it's a therapist, someone from your local church, auntie, grandma's wisdom. You got to find some place to just still have an outlet and a source.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Even as you stand strong, you still need to have that outlet and a source.
Right.
Yeah, because at some point, you still need to be nurtured.
Right.
Definitely taking care of yourself. Do the things that you love to do,
Right.
even if it's you doing it by yourself or you bringing someone with you. But oftentimes you'll forget, hey, I have to stay strong all the time. Strength also means rest.
Right.
It also means, let me just go get one of Nana's biscuits. Just sit, it may just be, let me just go sit by the cemetery and say, Ma, I wish you was here.
Yeah.
Right. So find a place that you can lean in on. And if you don't have it, create it.
Create it. I love that in every response, I feel like you've given us a list of things to remember and a list of, here are the boundaries. Here are the personal mindset shifts that you want to consider. Here are the qualities of people that you want to consider connecting yourself with. And so this is all a part, again, of what it means to really build community and what it means to work in collaboration with others, and to have community with yourself, because we got to start there first, as you reminded us. But if we have someone listening that's a leader who is looking to collaborate with others, what is the one thing that you would share with that person?
Be crystal clear on what you want them to collaborate with you on and how each of you are showing up in this collaboration.
Yeah.
Very clear.
Yeah.
And communicate it crystal clear. This is my expectations. What are yours?
Mm.
And that start of effective communication. So everyone knows what is expected. We mentioned it from the beginning.
Yes. Amazing, amazing. Lucinda, what work do you have coming up, or any new initiatives, products? Are you going to be somewhere exciting soon that you would like to share with us today?
Yes. So on my birthday, March 19th, I'm dropping my book. The book is called The Big Ask, ASK. So I'm doing the 2.0 version, which includes a workbook and just walking people through. And then also in March, kicking off with working with Chase. So I'll have like a free activation in Harlem so they can find out more information about that and how to show up. That'll be in March. We have one in March, May, and July. But those are the things that's coming up. They can find out about that at lucindacross.com or follow me on Instagram. I don't know about how TikTok's going to be rolling, but follow me on Instagram, Lucinda Cross, and get all the goods.
I love it.
LinkedIn, absolutely.
Okay. Thank you so much, Lucinda, for joining us today as we are addressing collaboration and what it means to be in community for yourself, for other women, for girls. I love what you're doing. I am so excited to, we're probably going to have to talk about some other things, National Black Girl Month, and how you're continuing to work with the Department of Justice, because there's a lot of powers that are forming, but we know won't prosper. And so I thank you again for joining us today.
Thank you so much. Glad to be here.
Of course. Welcome back, everyone, to another segment of our 50th episode. I'm so excited to have with us today Dr. Rhonda Simmons. So I want you to imagine being at the top of your career, leading in business, family, faith, but secretly battling burnout, maybe imposter syndrome, or the overwhelming question of how to balance it all. High-achieving women often face this reality, but what if thriving didn't mean sacrificing your well-being? These roles naturally mean that we're meeting people, we're connecting with people, okay? Collaboration can be one of the most rewarding experiences, but it can also be one of the most challenging. So what happens when conflict arises? What happens when relationships stretch us beyond our comfort zones? Or when collaboration demands more than we expected? And if you've been listening the last couple of episodes, I keep saying we have a show before the show, and Dr. Rhonda and I certainly had a show before the show today. She knows the weight of those challenges and the strength that it takes to rise above them. With over 30 years in senior ministry, 15 years as an educator, and a doctorate in educational leadership, Dr. Simmons has dedicated her life to empowering women in business to find balance and purpose without burnout. Through her coaching practice, Rhonda L. Simmons, LLC, she transforms the lives of C-suite and neurodivergent women, equipping them with faith-based tools to navigate their careers, marriages, and callings. As the founder of the Simmons Empowerment Foundation, Dr. Simmons also leads initiatives that provide safe housing and personal growth opportunities for unwed teen moms, empowering the next generation with hope and opportunity. In this milestone 50th episode segment, Dr. Simmons and I are going to talk about the realities of collaboration, the conflict, the growth, and the rewards it offers. So I am so excited to have with you. We've already spoken for about 45 minutes, y'all. This is just getting longer and longer, I tell you, but I absolutely love it. I'm so grateful to have you here, Dr. Rhonda. Thank you for joining today.
Thank you so much for having me, Felicia. I am excited to be on the show. It's always great talking with you. I'm glad to be here.
Yes, me too. And we were talking before I hit record, and I feel like we had such good nuggets before. I know it's gonna naturally flow into now.
Yes.
But I'm grateful for you to be here today. You all have seen I was also on Dr. Rhonda's show a couple of weeks ago at the end of the year, probably around December 30th. So I'm doing a plug for her now. We'll do a plug for her a little later. But Dr. Rhonda, we've met. I don't even remember how we connected, but it was in December or maybe November, and that time of year is always a blur for me. But I know that it was an immediate, like, oh, we can just talk and talk and talk.
Yes, yes. Felicia, with my show, just like you, I interview my candidates. I have an application process because I'm particular about who comes on the show.
Mhm.
And I'm always looking for that connection that can't be found on the application.
Mhm.
And I think I had posted a call for speakers. You responded. I read your application. And I remember thinking by the time I got to the end, I remember saying, "Oh, she's a definite yes."
Oh,
And so
thank you.
and so that's how you got on the show. And as soon as we met, there was that instant connection, and I said in my brain again, "Definite yes."
Definitely. Yeah. Same here.
Yeah.
Same here.
Yeah.
So I mean, we've talked a little bit about a lot of things in the last 45 minutes. But one of the things that made me say, okay, let me just go ahead and press record, is that there was I would say, a theme of, okay, I definitely know when I know, and then sometimes I don't. You said honor my boundary about what I'm going to do. And I want to just think the best of people and hope that they're going to show up the way that I would show up into something. Why do you think we do that? Why do you think we second guess what we've already set as this is what we're going to do? And then we find out that people aren't who we thought they were.
That's a good question, Felicia. I think first and foremost, as leaders, we are addicted to success.
Mm.
We are committed to it. We want to see our businesses thrive. And so when we make commitments, when we hire new team members, we're hiring with the thought that they're going to add something that's going to take us to another level. They're bringing something to the table that is going to elevate our success
Mhm.
as business owners, and as thought leaders, and so we had that mentality. And so sometimes because we're so committed to success, we compromise those boundaries. We forget the reason why we put boundaries in place to begin with,
Mm.
because we feel like, oh, this is so necessary. But
Mhm.
I've been listening to a book by Rachel Rogers, who wrote We Should All Be Millionaires.
Mhm.
And one of the things that she talks about in her daily seven is set a boundary
Mhm.
and stick with it.
Mhm.
And she said, if that means that someone who you feel is just the person you need to have a podcast interview with, and they're trying to interview you for their show, but your next availability isn't until April, it just is what it is.
Right.
And my initial thought when I heard it, because I've listened to her book about 3 times now, and when I first started, I thought, oh no, no, no. If this is like the person that I need to be on their show and to be able to say, I was on so and so show, then
Mhm.
I make concessions. And no sooner than I thought that, she said, it never works. Something goes wrong when you violate your own boundaries. And
Mm.
every time you do, there's like a ripple effect
Mhm.
from that decision that it does not result in a positive outcome.
Mm.
And so those boundaries are important. We have to remember why we set them. For
Mhm.
example, I'm committed to not working on Saturdays.
Mhm.
And that's hard because I work. And if I'm not working, trust and believe, my brain is always working. I'm
Right.
always thinking about it. Um, I violated that this past weekend.
Mhm.
And in hindsight, what I was working on for yesterday um, did not have the outcome that I had anticipated.
Mhm.
And I just walked away from that experience thinking, I should not have accepted this offer.
Mhm.
I didn't get the return on investment, the investment of my time,
Right.
because time is so important. That's the one commodity you cannot get back. If we
Absolutely.
keep living, we can get money back. We can earn the money back, but time is gone. So those hours that I invested and not spending time with my husband, not just having a great weekend with him, I'll never get those hours back.
Right.
And no, my marriage is not on the rocks, but that is a relationship that I value so
Right.
highly. And my husband works outside the home. And so um, Saturdays is our time, is
Yeah.
our time.
Yeah.
And I violated that. And he doesn't complain. He never complains.
Mm.
But that doesn't mean I take advantage of that either.
Mhm.
And to me, in hindsight, it was not worth all of that.
Right.
In fact, violating that boundary affected my health. I ended up having an AFib flare up
Oh, no.
Saturday night because I didn't get enough rest, which,
Mm.
continued into Sunday. So
Mhm.
I was too exhausted to go to church. And oh my goodness, I feel like a heathen if I don't go to church.
Yeah.
And so, and so I missed out on church on Sunday. And so, you know, violating those boundaries has, like I said, such a ripple effect. And I know that was a really, really long answer.
No, it's good. No, no, no. I appreciate you weaving and showing the consequences of when we violate our own boundaries. Lucinda, who you all will hear from in another segment, and even Lena, I think what you all are showing us about collaboration and about connection is that we first have to connect to ourselves, and we first have to honor boundaries within ourselves. And when we're working with people or considering working with people who sometimes they don't know what our boundaries are.
Mhm.
And then sometimes they do, and they'll still push the limit and see if we will bend or break. But I appreciate the story and how you've connected because I didn't read in your bio out loud, but I saw that your husband is the love of your life. And I was like, oh, that is so sweet.
Oh,
But
yeah.
go ahead, go ahead.
I was just going to say, um, we have such a unique relationship in that my husband and I have known each other for over 50 years.
Mm,
Um, we were married for 7
mhm.
years. We were divorced for 12, but God brought us back together in 2021. And we've been remarried since December of 2021. And the older versions of us are way better than the younger versions of us. And we are happy, we are in love. And so I'm a different woman now. And
Yeah.
even though I've always been career oriented, even from childhood, while kids were playing house, I was playing teacher. And, it was all about the job. I don't know where I got
Yeah.
that from, but it was always about the job.
Mhm.
And that's not who I choose to be in my marriage.
Mm,
And just like I have needs, my husband has needs, and it's for us to be there for each other.
mhm,
And again, and I know using that word violate is very strong. I mean it that way.
mhm, mhm,
Because when we violate our boundaries, we do so many times not considering the consequences of those choices.
mhm.
And yes, my husband is there always for me. I don't want to take advantage of that. I don't, oh,
Right,
he'll be all right. I'm doing this
right,
for the good of the family. He'll
right,
be
right,
all right.
right,
Gotta go to work. He'll be okay. He wasn't complaining when I had a 5-figure month.
right,
This is not that's not on the table. That argument is
right,
not there
right,
because truth be told, I'd rather be eating peanut butter and jelly with him. You
right.
know, on a Saturday, we have a thing. We play Skip-Bo. It's a card game.
Yeah.
That's just that was our thing in our first marriage. It
Mhm.
continues to be our thing now. And we just it's so funny between me and you. He's acting like he's asleep right now, not listening. But but the other night, I had gone into the kitchen. It was kinda late. Had to be close to midnight. I
Mhm,
wanted a quick snack. He was in the living room watching TV or scrolling or whatever he was doing, and I went to the dining room table to sit down to eat my snack
mhm,
before going to bed. I was tired. It was time to lay it down.
mhm, mhm.
The moment I sat in that chair, he popped up off the sofa. He said, "Okay, here I come." Like, "Oh, God." So tired. But that motion of me sitting at the dining room table cued him. It's time to play Skip-Bo.
Oh,
That's what we do.
so you
And so,
played.
girl, there comes a time you just do what you got to do, whether you're tired or not. You just suck it up.
Yeah.
Because this is my husband. This is our thing.
Yeah,
I value that relationship. I wasn't about to go into a speech about, well, I need my rest. I am so exhausted.
yeah.
Oh no, then I'm cars, Joker. I'm gonna win. And so,
I love this. I
yeah,
love this.
yeah. And so I don't want to continue to violate those boundaries
Mhm.
at the expense of everything else that really matters the most to me.
Mm,
And so it's just that important. So I'm trying real hard to stick to it.
yeah.
I will February will be better than what this has been.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. No, I
No.
I I appreciate you sharing that with us. I feel that stories always, linger in our minds. And so when people think about boundaries and think about not violating their boundaries, I hope that they're going to remember this beautiful story of you and your husband playing skip. But you just helped us segue into the next part of the conversation, which when we're thinking about collaboration, you just describe how it requires us to show up in a certain way, whether it's marriage, whether it's leadership, whether it's, leading yourself. What do you think that is required of us in terms of showing up in collaboration from the spiritual perspective, or the even just the personal perspective? What's required of us to do that, Dr. Rhonda?
Well, I'm pausing because I'm just thinking about the leadership experiences that I've had,
Mhm,
even when I was a school principal. Um, there's always a goal in mind.
mhm,
There's always an objective. There's always something that is targeted, some outcome that you want. And I get that. You have to have those goals in place. My concern about me showing up is as a leader, I just remember in education, no matter what scientific research based strategies the district rolled out, all of that is secondary to the fact that it's the people who are
mhm,
going to walk it out.
mm,
And as a leader, if you don't focus on your people
mhm,
and have a people first mentality,
mhm,
then everything else is just going to fall by the wayside because people are not going to hear you.
mhm,
And let me give you a quick example of what I mean. Um, in my last position, I got hired by a woman who had worked for me when I was her assistant principal,
mhm,
and it was a great experience. She was an excellent teacher, excellent teacher. And as I like to see, she moved on, she grew, she became a principal herself, and there was a good 7 or 8 years or more between the time that she worked for me to the time when she hired me and I worked for her.
mhm,
And so that was an interesting transition, but it was no problem. And when she hired me, um, she after I started the job, she made this comment. I had totally forgotten about this incident, but when she was a teacher, she and I worked at a school where the principal, I'll just say, was a challenge. That is
okay.
the lightest version of what I can say
Yeah.
about this individual. She taught me everything I did not want to be in a leader.
Mm,
That's an even better way to say it.
mm,
Everything I don't want to be, I
yeah,
learned from her.
okay.
And so, um, and an emergency happened in this teacher's life where her husband was in the hospital. I mean, nobody plans this. And I just happened to go into her room one afternoon to do what we call a walkthrough.
Mhm,
And I could tell that there was something visibly wrong with her. She was shaken, and this wasn't her norm. And so I just kept looking at her, and she came over to me in tears. She's told me about the situation, and she needed to leave. It was an emergency. She needed to leave, but she was so afraid that the principal would say, "No, you got to stay," because it was towards the end of the school day,
mhm.
maybe an hour or two left. And I looked her dead in the retinas and I told her, I said, ma'am, I need you to get your bag and your car keys, and you need to go see about your husband. I will never ask you to put this job above your family.
Right.
She said, well, what about so and so? I said, don't even worry about it. I got her.
Mm,
We will be just fine. And
yeah,
so I ended up covering her class the rest of the day. I didn't say anything. It was one of those situations that doing the right thing had to be done.
right.
And so I hadn't even remembered that situation until this woman reminded me of that. And she said, I'll never forget the compassion you showed me that day.
Mm,
She said it was a moment I needed to be there with him. There was nobody else could take that place. I wouldn't have been satisfied if I hadn't gone. She
mm,
said, you covered me.
mm,
And she said, "Thank you." And I just wanted to let you know the impact. And so that was so meaningful to me. And some of the things that I would remind her of as a leader, because sometimes you have to have those hard conversations.
right,
I
right.
always told her, leave their dignity intact. No matter
Mm,
what you have to say,
yeah.
no matter how critical the conversation, leave their dignity intact because at the end of the day, you're still going to need that person.
Oof.
And if you have broken that relationship, because you've been so harsh without any kind of compassion,
Mhm.
um, you can't get that back, and they will be your biggest challenge.
Mm.
And I said, so leave their dignity intact. And so these are the things that have helped her. And so when you asked about how you show up, to me, that is so important, having that people's first mentality when
Mhm.
you're walking into a collaboration opportunity,
Mhm.
because even though we're trying to create this big event, this whatever it is we're trying to do, it's
Mhm.
the people who
Right.
are doing it. It's not just you, it's the people. And so you have to really have a heart for people and a love for people, and just being that um, that have that human human what's the word, the human perspective
Right. Right.
to what you do. And
Yeah.
so that's just how I show up.
I love your storytelling. I really do. I mean, so far, and this is one of the ways that I love listening. Why one of the reasons why I love doing this is that I love listening to people and I love being able to share these moments with others. But you've just described number one, when you are thinking about collaborations and, romantic relationships or friendships, you brought in compromise because you stayed up and played the game with your husband that night. And now as you're talking about how we show up in collaboration, you've centered compassion for others. And I'm thinking of like, oh, there's 5 C's here. And people centered, compassion, compromise, and connection, right? You've modeled connection even before it starts into how do we work together, but you've already just demonstrated yourself as a safe place, psychologically safe and otherwise. And when we're thinking about the present times that we're in, there's a lot of chaos. There's another C. There's not a lot of chaos. There's a lot of distrust or mistrust, and for good reason. But I shared with Linda on her show, The Business Plug Mixer on Sunday night, that as leaders, these are our times when we raise up, right? We don't back down, and so we can consider this a conflict, right? So if we're leading with compassion, if we're leading with compromise, if we're showing up in our collaborations, people centered, what do you think, or what's your perspective on navigating conflict in these collaborations? Because they obviously happen, right? Like change is inevitable, and sometimes conflict is inevitable. It doesn't always have to be negative conflict, but when there's conflict, how do we navigate that in a healthy way in our collaborations?
It's so funny that you mentioned conflict, because I was sitting here thinking about conflict. Um, and I'm glad you love my stories, because I have another little one.
Yeah.
When I was an assistant principal, whenever there's people involved, there will be conflict.
Mm-hmm.
Period. It's
Mm-hmm.
going to happen.
Mm-hmm.
And I had two teachers. Well, one came to me. She was hot, and she was mad about something the other teacher had said, and how she took it. And I live in a military town,
Mm-hmm.
and so a lot of people are retired military. Well, when you have a retired military person that you're working with, sometimes they're quick to remind you, I don't need this job. I'm retired. And she was a retired um assistant general. She was high up, whatever her
Mm-hmm.
title was. She was
Mm-hmm.
very high up. So she clearly did not need the money from this teaching job.
Right.
And she reminded me of that. And so I'm like, oh gosh.
Okay.
And so I listened to what she had to say. I took notes. I made sure at the end that I said, let me share with you the notes that I have, so that I can make sure that I've captured everything that you said.
Mm.
I said, please let me know if I have misinterpreted something. That's what I did with teacher number one.
Mm.
And I read back to her the notes, because that communicates that I actually listened to you.
Right.
I wasn't just scribbling over here. I listened to you. I heard you. I said, I'll get back to you.
Mhm.
I went and got the other teacher, asked her to come to my office. Um, and we sat down, and I already knew how I was going to handle it. She didn't know, so she was tense. And I said, so teacher X shared some things with me that has really upset her. And I'd like to share with you what her complaints are.
Mm.
And she looked at me and she said, okay. And I read them to her. I said, now that I've told you what she said, I want to hear what your side of the story is, because that's the piece I don't know.
Mhm.
And I said, I can't, close this circle until I hear what you have to say.
Yeah.
And there was such an actual physical, visual response to what I said. She was like,
Relief.
just, no, she just relaxed.
Oh.
She said, nobody has ever asked me
Mm.
my side before in
Mm.
any situation.
Mm.
And she said, the fact that you led with that and didn't just come at me and, take her side and just say, man, and just, I'm sure that won't record very well, but,
Sorry.
and just say what you
Yeah.
said. And she said, the fact that you want to hear what I have to say, she was just blown away. She talked about that for days,
Wow.
outside of the situation. And I did the same with her. I took notes.
Mhm.
I said to her, let me repeat to you what I've taken. Let me know if I misinterpreted something.
Mhm.
And I said, okay. And then we were able to move forward. And the issue really wasn't as big as both teachers were making it.
Mhm.
But I was the objective party, and I could see clearly this was not, you know, earth shattering.
Right.
And so I offered a couple of suggestions. And then she said, okay. Then I went back to the first teacher and told her I had the meeting. I said, she'll be coming to talk to you soon,
Mhm.
because I think this is something that the two of you can work out as professionals. And I have every confidence in the two of you that you're going to be able to resolve this.
Oh.
I said, yeah. I said, now I've heard both sides, and here's a couple of points that you may not have considered. And I shared with her, I said, so I'll let you all talk about it and let me know how it turns out. However it turned out, it must have been okay because they both stayed employed. Uh, they continued to work together,
Oh.
and I never heard anything again. And so um, communication, in my opinion, is at the heart of most conflicts.
Mm.
It's not just about, how your mama said, it's not what you said, it's how you said it.
Mhm.
But to add to that, you don't know what type of frame of mind I'm in
Right.
at the time that you said what you said. You could have said good morning. And because my mind is thinking about that last battle I just got out the car with, and, I got this to pay and this to do and that to do. And you
Mhm.
said good morning. Did she say that with attitude? It just,
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
what you said may not necessarily be what I hear.
Right.
And so um, it's so important as leaders that we first take care of ourselves
Mhm.
so that we're in a healthy place, emotionally, psychologically, physically, in every way, so that not if,
When.
when the conflict arises, we can be objective, we can be the active listeners that we need to be, we can be effective in our communication,
Mhm.
um, and know how to address it. Um, and yeah, I know that's really long. It's
Oh,
just
no, Miss Rhonda, you see my face. I'm just like, "Ooh, this is so good." Because I'm hearing, in the conflict, we've got two more C's. We've got consideration
Mhm.
and we've got communication, right?
Yes,
Um,
yes.
and I mean, we know you said earlier that when you've got people, you're inevitably going to have conflict. And
Right.
we know sometimes that people do not deal with conflict well. And I feel that you've equipped us with a story to remember and how to go about this process in some sequential steps of what to do when you have a
Mhm,
conflict. And I love that you gave them ownership of resolving that issue.
mhm.
That is golden. Because some people may want to step in and say, okay, let me fix it. But I'm hearing that a good leader gives the people the tools, models the behavior, and then leaves them with what they need to come to a resolution. No, I love that. I love that. Um, I think that, we were talking before a press record. I don't even know how we got to talking about National Black Girl Month in April of this year, but some of the things that led to us getting to National Black Girl Month was what's happening with Black girls in the education system. Some of it is laws that have been on the books for ever and have not been changed. Things around truancy and that type of thing, and the way that Black girls are um, disciplined more frequently than their peers. But then we got to National Black Girl Month because we're talking about the celebration of Black girls and Black women, and I'm bringing that into the conversation now because you said we're not aware of what's going on in people's heads before we address conflict, and so that to me brings up unconscious bias, or not even we're not even going to get to discrimination, but microaggressions and stereotypical perceptions about certain classes of people or people with certain looks. We both have similar hairstyles, and so people may see us and just assume something, in either way, but that often leads to conflict. And you just said another thing that doesn't start with a C but a P, and that is to pause. Can we just slow down for a minute and
It's
really
powerful, yeah.
take an assessment of what is really going on or what could possibly be going on? And then another C is curiosity. What is really going on?
Mhm, mhm,
Am I going to jump to conclusions, or am I going to ask? You said it. I'm going to ask for clarity, and I want to make sure that I heard you correctly.
mhm.
That is a powerful tool. Um, a powerful tool. One of the other things that we were talking about before we press record was what happens when, we have some opportunities that are business aligned and friends enter the conversation, right? And we don't have to do specifics, but I would love to hear your perspective on your boundary of why we don't, or why we might not want to consider working with friends and how that disrupts relationships.
Well, Felicia, here's the thing. We have totally different mindsets when we are dealing with a friend, a sister girl, totally different mindsets to the point where we tend to code switch.
Mm,
We're not as professional, we let our hair down. We just, we're ourselves and we just talk how we talk.
mhm.
If that means our verbs are not conjugating correctly, talk to my sister girl, it doesn't matter.
Right.
But then when you try to switch that to a business relationship with a friend,
Mhm.
one of you didn't get the memo to make that switch.
Mm.
And the problem, and this is not a blanket statement that
Right.
applies in every situation.
Mhm.
I can tell you it has definitely applied in every situation that I have experienced
Mhm.
with a friend, is that they're still in friend mode and didn't recognize the fact that I have switched to business mode.
Mm.
This is a different Rhonda.
Mhm.
This is
Mhm.
not the sister girl Rhonda.
Mhm.
This is the business Rhonda.
Mhm.
So that makes, I'll just say it like this, that makes terminating a friend's employment that much more difficult because they're expecting me to give them 50,000 chances.
Right.
And that's not how Dr. Rhonda rolls.
Right. Right.
And um and so you have to decide how you want this to go.
Mhm.
Case in point, I got a little story.
Let's hear it.
So, in my nonprofit organization, the Simmons Empowerment Foundation Incorporated, the law requires that you have a board of directors of at
Mhm.
least 3 people.
Mhm.
And I had a board, and at the beginning of 2024, God directed me that it was time to replace my board.
Mhm.
And I knew it was coming anyway. I'd been feeling it, but the reason why is because I felt God was about to take our nonprofit into a different direction. And the ladies that I had on the board, wonderful ladies, wonderful. I have no problems. I have nothing negative to say
Mhm.
about them. Nothing. Absolutely wonderful ladies. But I did not feel that as board members, they were aligned as well as I needed them to be with the direction that we were about to go in.
Right.
And I was so nervous about having this conversation because, one of them I had been friends with for over 30 years.
Mhm.
And, when you're starting out a nonprofit and you have to have those board members, you might grab up your friends and your family members
Right.
just to get it off the ground. I get it. And that was the situation. But now here we are. This is our 5th year. And
Amazing.
I'm like, how do I have this conversation? Because I did not want to destroy a 30-year friendship over this.
Mhm.
And I prayed and prayed. And the first thing God spoke to me was talk to them individually.
Mhm.
And so, because I didn't want them to feel attacked,
Mhm.
in a group setting, let's
Mhm.
have a group meeting over Zoom, because they're all over the country.
Right.
And so I called them individually and I said, hey, I need to have this conversation with you. I even scheduled the time,
Yeah.
so we were locked in and I called them. I was so nervous. And normally nervousness is not a part of my character.
Mhm.
But I was nervous.
Mm.
And they were individually, they were both so quiet. They let me talk through the whole thing I had to say. They didn't interrupt. There was no rebuttal. I'm like, oh God, what is happening?
What
I
is
didn't know.
happening?
Yeah, I didn't know what to make of their silence. And in both instances, when I got done, they both said to me, oh my God, I'm so glad you talked to me because I was trying to figure out a way to talk to you to
Oh.
tell you I wanted to step down.
Mm.
And I mean, I could have just run around my room.
What
Was so
a
thankful.
story.
Yes, so
Oh.
thankful because I was measuring my words and I would not be rushed in that conversation because I
Mhm.
did not want to say the wrong thing. And so I measured my words. I took my time because I wanted to leave their dignity intact. I
Yes.
did not want to destroy the friendship. Like the 30 years is a long time to be friends with somebody, you
Absolutely.
know?
Yes.
And and so it worked out, and I was able to, just phase them on out.
Mhm.
And, I'm like, God, the law says I'm supposed to have, at least three members on the board. It's just me. And 1 plus 1 does not equal 3. And so
Yeah.
so, within a matter of weeks, long story short, um, God replaced those 2 with 2
Mm.
more board members. And now I have an international board. One is in the UK, the other is in Kenya. We're all doctors. That wasn't a requirement
Right.
of it, but it just, and it elevated the experience. Now we did a soft launch initiative in Kenya with
Mhm.
a virtual summit. And so we're definitely going in a totally different direction. So I didn't know anything about an initiative in Kenya at the time
Mm.
that God told me to replace my board. I was just trying to move in obedience, but you have to be careful. You have
Mhm.
to decide,
Mhm.
where do I want this person to fit into my life?
Mhm.
Do I want them to be my friend, or do I want them to be a business associate?
Right. Right.
Which one matters the most to me?
Right.
And make sure, if you just have to do business with a friend, make sure that you communicate effectively. These are my expectations. They need to know who you are as a business person,
Right.
because they've just been seeing you as a sister girl, and they might think, oh, she's so easygoing and laid back. Um, but you can't be that easygoing and laid back in business if you're the leader of
Absolutely.
it. You
Absolutely.
got, as they say, you got to have a little dog in you. You know,
Absolutely.
in order to really make it and to be
Yeah.
successful in business. And if they have never seen that side of you, then you need to tell them so that
Absolutely.
they can make an informed decision about which role they want to play.
Well, I have definitely learned the hard way several times with friends, and you would have thought by the third time that I would have not done it again. But it was just my natural inclination to think that, you know, I know how I show up for people that I care about. I know how I show up for strangers, you know. But you're right, communicating the expectations and really navigating the this is who I am in friend mode, this is who I am in business mode, and then deciding, I mean, as people, because we have relationship with people, because we have that compassion and that empathy, it leads us to be a little bit more apprehensive. You said you were a little nervous having that conversation with your friends because you wanted to preserve the relationships.
Hmm.
Um, but that leads me to the question, Dr. Rhonda, when we're thinking about strategic partnerships and we're thinking about proximity and we're thinking about, oh, this person seems really great or this person seems like a kindred spirit, how can women in leadership leverage these partnerships to create sustainable collaborations, if even for a season? What might that look like?
To maintain those healthy collaborations.
Yeah.
Um, Again, it comes back to communication. Um, and it comes back to uh, a rule that I've seen in many of the groups that I'm in on Facebook, and that would be give more than you take.
Okay. Simple enough. Simple enough. I love that. I love the simplicity of it. Now you have some things coming down the pike and you are leading women and girls and your team. What do you hope that the ripple effects of your work will have on the next generation of women leaders?
Wow. The legacy that I want to leave, Felicia, is to be fearless,
Mm,
to be absolutely relentless.
mm,
I want to say this, and this is the first time I've said this publicly outside of my home with my husband. Despite what we feel about the current administration, this is not a political conversation,
mhm,
but um, I am blown away with the relentlessness of this administration. Um, 34 felonies, I don't care. I'm going to be the next president of the United States.
mhm,
It does not matter. I even heard um, a newscaster say during the um, the election that he's been campaigning since 2016. Think about it. He never stopped being in the news. He never stopped being visible. He never stopped being who he was.
mhm,
Whether you agreed with his agenda or not, you
mhm.
knew what it was. He
Absolutely.
talked about it all the time.
Mhm,
You know, and again, I'm not picking sides. I'm just saying what I've noticed.
Right.
And whether we agree or not, man, that relentlessness.
It paid off for him.
Yeah, and here we
And
are.
here we
Here
are.
we are. And I say that to say, and I hope I've said it well enough to be received,
Hmm.
but I say what I say is that if he can do that despite everything that he was tied up in, how much more can I do with the God of the universe on my side and walking in the purpose that he has ordained for my life?
Mm.
As women, we tend to shrink back sometimes
Mhm.
in imposter syndrome. We tend to doubt ourselves and our abilities, regardless of how many degrees and years of experience we may have.
Mhm.
But we've got to get that relentlessness that will not quit, that will not give up, that no matter what happens, we're going to make it because this is what God said.
Yeah.
No matter what goes wrong, no matter whether we have a 5-figure month or a no-figure month, this is still going to happen.
Right.
God is not going to let me fail because he ordered this. So he's going to provide. He's going to give the provision for the vision, as they say.
All right
And
now.
so we've got to have that relentlessness no
Yes.
matter what, that I will not be denied. I will not be silent. I will walk in the authority of the purpose that God has placed on my life.
Mm.
And whether you like me or not, whether you agree with me or not, you will not be able to deny that I'm here.
Ooh, I love it.
And if I could sum up all of the political climate right now, I think that statement would be it. You may not like me, but I'm here.
I'm
You
here.
cannot deny it. It's not going away. This is the way it is going to be for the next 4 years. I'm here now.
Mm. I'm here. I'm here. Dr. Rhonda, this has been an amazing conversation around collaboration with self, with others, with loved ones, with team members, with those that you are leading, with community. And I'm so excited for the rest of the world to hear this, right? As if they were a fly on the wall during our conversation. But please do share with us how people can connect with you, what work you may have coming up, and leave us with that.
All right. Well, my website is www.tsefi.org. That is the acronym for my nonprofit organization, the Simmons Empowerment Foundation Incorporated, which is a long name. So tsefi.org is the website. You can get in contact with me there. You can see what's going on. You can see about my coaching programs, my bio, and all of that. And you can take a self-assessment. Yes, absolutely free. You can take this self-assessment. It is the Burnout to Balance sequence. And it only asks you 10 questions so that you can become aware of where you are on the burnout spectrum. And so, so that you'll know, am I handling all of this well, or girl, I need an intervention, or I just need an escape. And so, and if you're needing an escape, I've got a Dear Future Me Leadership Academy cruise coming up in September 2025, from the 15th to the 19th. We're leaving out of Miami, going to the Bahamas and to Perfect Day at Coco Cay, which is the private island of Royal Caribbean. And while we're at sea, one of those days, that is when we're going to actually do the sessions for the Leadership Academy. And so I'm not taking up your whole week. We're going to have lots of fun, but just for a couple of hours on the day that we are at sea will be the actual academy, because I want to share with some leaders how to avoid burnout, how to rebuild after burnout, and how to create those sustainable systems as a leader so that you're not in that burnout cycle again. And so I'm really looking forward to that. I have lots of other things planned, but that's the big one that's on my mind right now.
Thank you so much, Dr. Rhonda. Positioning yourself as a leader includes strategy, but before we get to that, we also have to think about mindset, clarity, and understanding the dynamics of navigating change. Operating as an instrument of change requires intention and the ability to navigate power dynamics, navigate growth, and collaboration with purpose. Lena West brings nearly 2 decades of experience guiding service-based founders to position themselves and their businesses for this kind of transformation. As the founding director of CEO Rising, Lena has mentored over 5,000 founders, developed $16 million business models, and created an ecosystem for growth rooted in authenticity and inclusivity. Her expertise in scaling, negotiation, and money has led her to lead in several groups. Lena's been featured in Forbes, Essence, Black Enterprise, and the Wall Street Journal. And so today, I'm so excited to have Lena here. We were talking last week, and we just said, okay, we've got to continue this conversation. We need to invite you into the conversation. And so, Lena, my new friend, I'm so excited to see you today.
Team Igloo.
Hey! You guys will hear
Absolutely.
about
Thank
that
you.
later.
Yeah. Thank you so much for having me, Felicia. I'm really excited. And yes, wanted to invite folks in on the conversation.
Yes.
They needed to be here.
They needed to be here. We were on last week. It was supposed to be an hour, and I want to say we were talking for like 3 hours. 4.
But who's counting?
And we still have so much more to discuss.
I know, right?
I love meeting you. We met last month in a network, and Lena just has this spirit about her that is, this is what it is. And she honors who you are and what you're saying. And then she's going to say, can I offer this to you? Because you might want to approach this in a different way. And I love this about Lena. I do. And so, Lena, I gave a little bit about who you are, what you've done, what you're doing, but I'd love to hear from your own words. Share with the audience why you're here.
Well, first of all, it takes one to know one. And I felt the same way about you. At the moment I met you, I was like, who is this woman? And how can I be in her orbit? Okay. I am here because of a vision, quite frankly. A vision rooted, ironically, based on today's conversation, in collaboration. I believe in collaboration. I've been saying for years before it even became, really popularized that I don't believe in competition. Competition, I believe, is a construct to keep us with our eyes on somebody else's paper and not fulfilling the work that we came here and we were put here to do. And so I'm here because I believe that service-based founders deserve and need the same level of growth ecosystem support that tech companies get. I got tired of hearing people saying that service-based businesses can't grow, they can't scale, they're not investment worthy. And I was like, that feels like lies and deceit to me. And so why don't we correct it? I'm one of these people, like once I keep hearing incorrect and misinformation constantly over and over and over, I'm like, yeah, we're not going to do this. We're going to change this. And so it took me 2 years, but I took the incubator model that we're all familiar with, the Y Combinators, the Techstars of the world. I took that model, turned it upside down, and made it really palatable for service-based businesses and giving them the same level of support. And so I'm here because I'm someone with a vision.
You have a mighty vision, and I'm so glad that our paths have crossed. And I love the way that you have positioned this because people, I'm going to say even nonprofits, right, might fall on that that misconception and that myth that things can't be scaled or that you've got to go, with the bare minimum. And that's just not true. We've seen it. It's just not getting the same attention as some of these other business models and business types. And, I'm in a group on Facebook that centers around tech, and they're often talking about, we're in this round of funding, we're in that round of funding, and so much money is raised. But then we've got other service-based founders, and it's crickets. It's
Yes.
crickets. So thank you for following your vision and for influencing the masses. And even being brave and courageous in this walk of what it means to create community. We're present in the times. We know what's happening in our world right now in the United States, and it's caused some disruption in many ways. How are you seeing, this disruption and how it's impacting or may impact service-based founders?
So I have a bit of a different take on all of this.
That's why we're here, Lena, because I do too.
I have a different take on all of this. And here's how I feel. And this might sound like a little deep, but I feel like I can kind of go here on your
You
platform
can
because
certainly do that.
so since you and I spoke, you don't even know this, but since you and I spoke, I found out that a really good friend, someone who was a good friend in the past, passed away in a pretty horrific way.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
Thank you. And we hadn't been in touch in quite some time, but still, at one point, we were actually roommates.
Mm.
It's a significant loss. It truly is. And so for the past 2 days, I have been in my mind trying to reconcile, I guess that's the best word, reconcile what her passing means to me. Because I don't believe that things like that happen for no reason in terms of we need to be paying attention. And it put it into perspective for me, Felicia, quite frankly, of this is what matters. I was always told by my elders that if you think the storms are bad now, just wait.
Right.
If you think things are bad now, just wait. And so my entire life, I wasn't insulated from the fact that things have to really get a little bit more tense. Things have to get a little bit more tight in order for them to get better. And so I actually have been expecting this. And it's so funny with the election. I told everyone last year, this is how it's going to go. And everyone was like, stop saying that. Stop manifesting that. I'm like, you really don't understand what's going on, do you?
Right.
Like, you really don't see the handwriting that's on the wall, do you? Like, and this is a time of as I said earlier, of reflection. And it's a time for us to say, who are we? And in order for us to ask and answer the question, who are we? You need to be able to ask and answer, who am I?
Who am I? Yes.
Who am I?
Who am I?
How am I? As my mother would say, this is not a dress rehearsal. This thing that we're doing right now, this is for what we all know, this is the one shot you get at it.
Right.
And so how do you want to show up with that knowledge? How do you want, knowing that, how do you want to show up? Who do you want to be? And what is your own personal and professional ministry? And how can you stay in your lane, not in terms of controlling yourself or only doing one thing, but how can you, like some folks, they can go out and they can protest for hours. That's not my ministry.
That is not my calling either.
I'm not a street protester. I respect and I give to those causes, but that's not my ministry. That's not what I do. I'll go to corporations and get 6 figures worth of funding and give that money away to founders who need it. Like, that's my ministry.
Same.
So you got to know who you are in all of this
Mhm.
before you can require more of us.
Mm.
I hope that makes sense.
It makes so much sense to me. It resonates so much. When I was planning this episode, and I was sharing with Lena just before we hit record how we came to this moment. If you've been listening to the podcast, then you've heard from Black-owned businesses, Black founders, and that is a result of the magazine that we released last year. And we featured 18, there's a total of 21 people in there that are Black-owned businesses, but this was all planned, right? Like, I sat down in July and said, this is where we're going. So long before the talks about the candidates, long before the change in who was running and what was going to happen. This is what we do as a leader. We sit and we have to pause and reflect, as you said, and we really have to look at, like you said, the writing on the wall. And the writing on the wall to me in July was, here was the moment. I was looking at grants that I had awarded for the year, and I was looking at the data, and the data said that Black people in this particular region were receiving more assistance than others. It looked sad. It angered me, Lena, because I said, this is not our story. This is not our full story. So, as other people do, I'm using, AI. And at the time, I was using ChatGPT. And as I'm conversing with ChatGPT, it kept using terms like resilience and strength. And I questioned it to say, well, why are you continuing with this story of struggle? Why are you centering the conversation when it comes to describing Black people using the word resilience? We don't need that. We have other facets, we have other traits, we have other characteristics. And so it acknowledged its bias and explained why it had the bias that it has. And so I reflected also on friendships, relationships, collaborations that went well, those that didn't go as well. And it brought me here, and I said, it is possible for us to organize together. It is possible for us to collaborate because, there's that famous, well, maybe not famous, but there's a quote somewhere circulating online that says, we're collaborating at the top, we're not competing.
Yep. It's been my experience over and over, and I will say this all the time, is that whenever competition enters the frame, it's never coming from folks who are operating at the top. It's always coming from folks who are trying to scramble at the bottom. And it's really unfortunate. But when you see it, it is what it is. Like, that's almost my motto at this point. And I truly, truly, truly believe that competition, not only is it a false construct that keeps us busy, but also it's not even real, because in order for competition to actually exist, I have to be trying to be Felicia, and Felicia has to be trying to be me. Because how can I, just if you think about, like, apply some real thought to it, right? Real logic. How can I compete with Felicia? I can't.
Right.
It's not possible. How can Felicia compete with me unless Felicia starts looking and acting and sounding like Lena? That's the only way. And if you get to that point, we need to have another conversation.
Another conversation.
That's a whole other conversation, right? But
With
it's
a
like
therapist.
we need to think these things through. And when people, it's so funny. I've worked with people in the past, and they'll send me forms, and it's like, tell me what your unfair advantage is. And I'm like, I don't want to have an unfair advantage. I don't want to do anything unfair. It's like, I don't even know how to answer this question. Or tell me who your competition is. Me.
Right.
Like, I don't, I don't believe in these constructs, and yet they are entered into our lexicon collectively with such regularity that we don't question them anymore. We just kind of go along with the rhetoric, and it really takes a leader. It takes someone with an immense amount of confidence to say, I don't know how to answer this question for you because you're introducing a construct into my orbit and in my frame that I don't engage in. So
Yes.
like either we need to bring this conversation, the conversation needs to up level,
Mm-hmm.
the conversation and the vocabulary needs to up level, or
Mm-hmm.
we probably won't be able to have this conversation.
You started your conversation talking about being aware of who you are and
Yes.
your own identity. And I would say that those who have the higher emotional intelligence are going to click with that immediately and say, yes, of course, right? And it's not a negative to those who are on the front lines and serving. But the reality is, as a service-based leader, you are
Yeah.
typically going to be touching the most vulnerable populations and people who may not have the emotional intelligence or who may be struggling in certain ways. And so you may have some additional challenges in doing the work.
Yes.
But this thought that you've introduced here, Lena, of self-identity also then brings along healthy boundary setting.
Hello.
And also being able to identify like-hearted, like-minded, like-purpose people, which this message of competition is driving. You're not the same, you're so different, or even scarcity, right? So if we're considering identity, leading, and collaboration, what would you say to the business owner who is leading in their community and they feel alone? They might feel like, I'm leading this and I don't know how to attract, or I don't have the time to reach out, or I don't even know where to find my people.
Without this sounding like some sort of big old shameless plug, that's exactly why I built CEO Rising, quite frankly, because back in, I want to say it was, so about 3 years ago, I noticed within myself,
Mm-hmm.
I noticed my environment. Environment is a big deal to me. I like a certain aesthetic in my home because it gives me peace so that I can focus on my work that I need to do.
Mm-hmm.
I like a certain aesthetic in my vehicle so that I'm calm and that I can drive and I can actually hear the podcast that I'm listening to,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm not focused on stuff flying around in the car. So all of these things matter to me.
Mm-hmm.
And, I have to really truly say that who you are around makes all the difference in the world. I think it's something that we go back to that definition, resilience and strong and that sort of thing. And we can make something out of nothing, and,
Mm-hmm.
and resourceful, like
Mm-hmm.
all of those kinds of adjectives and traits that are normally ascribed to folks, to Black folks. What ends up happening then is we feel like when we're in a bad situation where people have shown us who they are,
Mm-hmm.
where people have shown the envy, where people have shown the covetousness, where people have shown that they don't really support us, where people have shown that they are really not behind us, or they're only behind us and supportive of us when it's convenient for them. We feel like we decide, I'm not going to do this and I'm not going to get engaged, we try to then automatically figure out, how do I make it work?
How do I
How,
fix this?
how do I fix this?
Yeah.
How do I, what I call, become the martyr in this relationship, whatever that relationship is, romantic, personal, professional, whatever? How do I become the martyr in this relationship so that I can make this work. And I'm saying, I don't do any of that
Right.
because, listen, I fully realize, and this is something that I also want to say about the conversation around high emotional intelligence and low emotional intelligence. Listen, I get that sometimes it's not who you are, it's circumstances.
Right.
And what I'm here to say is your number one job, there's a reason that I talk about being in someone's orbit or them being in my orbit, because I know that that matters.
Right.
Influences me matters. It's why I tell people all the time, compliments and digs and haters and trolls or whatever you want to call them, it makes no difference to me. When somebody who is not in my orbit, that I have intentionally placed in my orbit, gives me a compliment, I'm grateful. Yes, thank you so much. I appreciate you. Thank you. And I move on.
Right.
I don't allow people to pedestalize me. I don't allow people to turn me into some sort of savior. That's not who I am. That's not what I do. By the same token, I also don't allow people to tell me who I am and say, oh, well, you're doing this or you're this kind of person. Ma'am, sir, you don't know me. You have no idea who I am. And for the people who praise me, I say, thank you so much. But also, I know that they also don't know me.
Right.
So it's a matter of you curating, like if almost as if you're a museum director. It's a matter of you curating your environment and putting yourself what I call intentionally placing yourself in environments that are going to support you. Now, I want to be real clear here before folks come into the comments and come into the DM. I'm not talking about creating an echo chamber or groupthink.
Right.
That's not what I'm talking about.
Right.
What I'm talking about is having the presence in the conversation and in the relationship to know when somebody's not for you.
Yes. Yes.
And then do something about it.
Yes.
If you're a service-based business owner and you are finding it really hard to find your people, then that's your job. I remember when I was younger, my mother used to tell me, if you don't have a job, your job is to get a job. If you're a service-based founder and you haven't found your people, that's your job.
Right.
Your job is to find where are the enclaves of entrepreneurs and founders where I feel like I'm going to be supported. And let me give you one other little sidebar secret. You might have to pay to get in.
Okay.
It might not be handed to you.
Okay.
It might not be given to you. It might not be in some free Facebook group. It might be something that you have to go and get a part-time remote job so that you can invest to get what you need to be in the community that you prefer to be in, because with choice comes freedom and responsibility. So it's not always going to be the free group or the free this or the free that. It might be that you have to invest in yourself. And when people say, oh, do you invest in yourself? This is exactly what we're talking about.
This is such a great transition to this next topic about the psychology of money. But before we get there, Lena, I have to set the stage here. We've touched on identity of self and healthy boundaries and influence and what your environment looks like. You broke it down to even what your car feels like, what your home looks like, and taking care of yourself. And now shifting into this conversation about investing in oneself.
Yes.
People who've not had exposure to these upper levels of wherever. And it doesn't mean, immediate $1 million business. But if you've been aspiring for this lifestyle or aspiring for your business to go to a certain place, but you're still hanging out where you used to hang out, or you're still doing the same things that got you to year 5 is not going to get you to year 10 or even year 6. But going further requires an investment in skill, in mindset, and in time. And that, as you said, often comes with paying a price. But what will that price look like? And so I would love for us to now move into this portion of conversation around investing and the psychology of money. I'm just going to let you take this here because I can't wait.
You know, again, about a few years ago, I realized like I don't have the right people in my orbit. And this happens to all of us. I blame systems. I don't blame people.
Right.
This happens to all of us.
Yeah.
You might, look up one day and decide to do some deep introspection and realize like, wow, I really don't have the right folks. And so I said to myself, so, okay, now what are you going to do about it? Because I knew that's my responsibility. I can't, my mom can't change my friends. My husband can't change my friends. Like, you know what I mean? Like, it's just, it doesn't work that way. And so I said, well, this is my responsibility. So what are you going to do about it? And that's when it's not even funny. To me, this is how life works. This is how you know that you are in alignment and you are being supported. Because that's when I started seeing all sorts of clips on Instagram and Reels and YouTube Shorts about how, I believe it's TD Jakes who says this, that greatness is contagious. If you're around it, you'll catch it.
I love that.
Listen, I love that because when I heard it, I had to pause the video and say, wait a minute. Greatness is contagious. If you're around it, you'll catch it, which also means the converse is true.
Right. I have chills right now because that just hit me.
Yep. If your greatness is contagious, if you're around it, you'll catch it. And then I started, and some people may have heard that same axiom delivered as, if the four people you're hanging around are millionaires and you want to be a millionaire and you're not a millionaire yet, you're the fifth one, right? Just by virtue of whose orbit you're in and who's in your orbit.
Right.
And these things matter. And this is one of the reasons that when I start working with clients who have not had the degree of financial success they want, whatever that looks like for them. It's not always $1 million. That's a whole other conversation we have. But when I start working with founders who have not realized and actualized the level of financial success they're looking to achieve, my first question to them, one of my first questions to them is, so do you have the money, the energy to carry the money you want? Because if you tell me that you want to open up a $500,000 revenue stream in your business, now see, total sidebar over here again is I'm the person that you say, this is how much money I want to make, and I'll put together any business model for you. Like, that's what I do. That's what I do. I'm going to show you how. You tell me you want to make this money. So what is it that you do and what do you charge? Oh, no, let's retrofit this. Like, that's what I do. I put together business models that work, and I've done it successfully over and over and over for 17 years.
Yes.
So now that I'm off my soapbox about that, I will say I'm never the coach that's going to come in and say,
uh-oh.
So I'm not the coach that's going to recommend to you that you double your prices when I walk in the door and we start working together. Because one of my first questions is, again, do you have the energy to hold that price? I watched someone who is actually a very, very bright entrepreneur, amazing founder, and does very good work. I watched her lead a retreat for the first time and try to upsell some coaching on the back end of the retreat. and she couldn't energetically hold the price that her coach told her to charge. So her coach had her plan this retreat, and it was in person. This was pre-COVID. It was in person, plan this big retreat. She had a very nice turnout. I want to say it was about 75, 80 people in the room. And when it came time to upsell this package on the back of the retreat, she couldn't hold the price. Because my thing is this, when it comes to the psychology of money, anything that you say after your price is justification.
Right.
Anything.
Right.
So if you say, everybody knows me for, okay, the work that I do with my Opus level clients. Okay. And they're like, wow, how do you get people to pay you 6 figures to work with you for a year? And I'm like, because I don't think twice about it. You tell me you want to make $10 million. And I'm like, great, let's find the $10 million worth of value and let's get this money.
Let's find
I'm not
it.
fazed by that. I'm
Right.
not fazed by the amount of money. I'm completely unfazed by it. And so for me, it's a matter of, are you still nervous about the money? Are you still, does the talk about the money make you get the willies or make you feel like, oh, well, I don't know if they're going to pay me. The price is the price. And as Fat Joe would say, yesterday's price is not today's price.
Insert the hand claps. Yes.
To me, that's what the psychology of money is about. It's really breaking it down to its fiat currency. And it allows you to do what you need to do in your life and in your business. And it's not something that you need to be scared of per se. It's there. It's there. And you reverse engineer your mind so that you can carry it. And so I might know for a fact that somebody needs to double their price, but that's not going to be my recommendation at the outset. I'm going to step you in increments to that next price, because then you'll start to feel like, oh, I can charge this. And let me also say, I'm the queen of the sidebars. Sidebar note is, if you're getting the immediate yes every single time you put a proposal out or you state your prices, wrong price.
You need to increase.
It's got to go up, up, because your price is not meant to have people say yes immediately.
Right.
Your price is meant to have people think and consider, this is an investment. Is this the right person? Because when folks do that, when potential clients do that, you get clients that show up and do the work and don't play games with your time.
Yes. Yes. Lena, you may have introduced the concept of, we've talked a little bit about the concept of money. We've had a couple of conversations around wealth and mindset. But I've found that these are some conversations that are, and terminology that are new to some maybe first generation wealth builders, or, some of our folks who are moving up the ranks, and it's, they're first time business owners or first time leaders. And so some of these concepts are new for them. What are some things that show up if they don't decide to take action on that thing?
What I have found is that one of the ways that you can tell that you're not taking action on moving forward with your own money set point, your own money thermometer, is you start taking on other folks' money stuff. And you know that by what you experience. So so Lena, what do you mean? Here's an example. If heretofore you having a daily Starbucks has never been a problem for you financially, like it's no big deal. You have your daily Starbucks and you're fine. Or if buying organic has never been a problem for you, then all of a sudden you start hanging around people or talking to people, or you start educating yourself and the people about money, and the folks who are around you are not on that same plane of understanding with you about money. It's going to be harder and harder to afford those organics. it's going to be harder and harder to afford that latte every day. Why that happens, I have no idea. I truly believe that it is divine intervention to kind of thunk you on your head and say, pay attention, because who you're around. Listen, I love people. I enjoy people very much. I enjoy my family. I love my family. And there are some folks who I cannot be in their orbit. Not because I don't like them, not because I'm stuck up, not because I think I'm better than them, but because I have too much on the line. And because I just know that I have too much on the line. It's not about, see, this is, and this is how you know that you need to work on your mind state. Because if you notice that there are folks around you who have elevated or who are elevating, and they are, I don't want to say distancing themselves from you, but they feel distanced from you in some way, then you need to be asking yourself, how do I also elevate? Not, oh, this, and not with the narrative of, oh, this person has attitude, this person is this. That person is probably up leveling their own orbit, and it's your job to do the same thing. Right?
Absolutely.
So the number one way that I would say that you notice that you're really not doing the work that you need to do is is the things that you used to be able to do become really, really difficult.
Yeah.
The other thing is money becomes a trigger for you, and not in a good way. So you stop wanting to discuss it. You stop wanting to talk about it. You stop wanting to learn about it. It frustrates you because you're not getting the results that you want. And instead of unpacking that and figuring out, like, oh, the reason that I'm not getting the results I want is because I'm going to my CPA and I'm asking them to take on the role of a tax attorney or an estate attorney. And I really need to find an estate attorney because I'm not getting my needs met. Let me tell you, this I know firsthand, because when we were thinking about building a next project that requires different legal, different legal advice, a different kind of legal focus, if you will. We were thinking about our next product for CEO Rising. I kept asking my business attorney financial questions, legal financial questions, and my attorney, great attorney, no problem, no judgment against him, but kept giving me very generic answers. And I was like, what is going on here? And so I went and I asked a friend of mine who works in securities. And they're like, oh, you're talking to the wrong person. That person just, it's not that they're not good at what they do. They
Right.
just don't have the expertise to help you. So if you
Right.
find that you're getting frustrated, if you find that you're not getting the answers, you're probably asking either the wrong questions of the wrong person or the right questions of the wrong person.
Right. Right. Yeah. I am, again, in my mind, we've got identity, we've
Yeah.
got healthy boundaries, we've got environment, we've
Yes.
got the psychology of money or your money mindset. And as a part of that money mindset, the concept that money is a tool, right? So, kind of an extension of your own money story, but money is a tool. And in my experience, some service based business owners, because of their money story, it's a bit challenging for them to identify money as a tool and to receive that receiving more money is a good thing because it allows you to reach more people. It allows you to deepen your impact. It allows you to invest in yourself and to surround yourself with your like-minded people in your group. Talk to us a little bit, Lena, about using money as a tool and how you've navigated mergers and the power dynamics. Like, there's so much here that I would love for people to hear from your experience about money as a tool in terms of collaborations and growth.
I always like to think of money. I say money, marriage, having children, and running a business. They're all amplifiers. So there are some people who look at people who have had a degree of financial success and they say, well, that person is a jerk and I don't want to have that money because that person, that's what happens when you have too much money. You become a jerk. Mm-mm. Let me tell you something. That person was always a jerk. It just now means that they have the money to show you how much of a jerk they are. It's an amplifier. Money
Right.
is it amplifies whoever and whatever you are. It amplifies that.
Yeah.
So often I meet founders and they're so worried that the money is going to turn them into a greedy person, an extractive capitalist, somebody who steps on other people to get ahead. And I'm like, are you that person now? No, I would never do those things. So then why do you think money would change that?
Right. Right.
Right. And like let's go there, right? Let's, as Iyanla says, let's call a thing. So let's go there, because are you really that easily influenced that you would allow money to do that? Because if so, that's the conversation we need to be having
First.
first,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
If you
Mhm.
haven't, if that's the conversation we need to be having, because that's probably why you don't have the financial level of success that you'd like to have, because you're scared it's going to turn you into something that you're not. And so, like, let's have the conversation about, is that even possible?
Mm.
Right?
Right.
Do you have a history of when you do have a little liner in your pockets, you turn into someone else? Let's deal with that. Let's
Ooh.
deal with that,
Mm.
because that's the conversation that we need to have, right? And so it's this thing. It's again not being attached to the money, being moving back from the money and the actual physicality of it, and saying, well, what actually is it? I like to view money again. I view it as an amplifier. Whenever I create a mental picture of myself, when I think about money turning me into an octopus. So it gives me more hands
More
to
hands.
do more things and do more and provide more support,
Mhm.
whether that's mutual aid in my own community, whether that's providing scholarships to founders who need it, whatever that looks like.
Mhm.
And it's so Jacket Timmons says and taught me that every dollar has to have a job. And sometimes, and again, sidebar, like hint, if you're someone who sees the money piling as you start saving in your savings account, and you start getting nervous, you need to ask yourself why. If you feel the need to spend every dime you get, you need to ask yourself why. Because there's probably some sort of unfilled wound there
Mhm.
that you need to just examine and take a look at, because you don't have to spend every dime you get. Because sometimes the dollar, right, going back to what Jacket taught me about every dollar having a job,
Mhm.
sometimes the job of that dollar is to sit in your bank account and make you feel safe. Sometimes the job of that dollar is to sit in your high yield savings account and make you feel like there's less wolves at your door.
Oh.
Sometimes that dollar is to make you feel really good about the blood, sweat, and tears that you've put into your business so that you can give mutual aid to your local community, to your church, to your synagogue, to your mosque, or wherever you worship, or wherever you build community. Sometimes that dollar is meant to give to a friend so that she can get her behind on a plane and come get some sister to sister love because she is depleted.
Mm.
Sometimes it's in saying, hey, girl, I got it if you don't.
Yes. Oh, every dollar has a job.
Every dollar has a job. Every dollar has a job.
Oh, now at the beginning of this conversation, I usually say to make sure you have your pen and pencil ready or your iPad and your Apple Pencil ready. But if you've been listening for at least 4 episodes, then you already know to
Okay.
have
Get it out. Get it ready.
get it ready, because Lena, these are such good insights to reflect on and pausing to have this conversation. I don't know where else this type of conversation is being had. I know that there are other podcasts that talk about money mindset, but to combine the two of, because service-based business owners usually have this mindset of, I want to help people.
Yes.
And sometimes they also have, well, I have to be a martyr in order to help people, or I have to be poor, or just making quote unquote enough in order to help people. And this is a conversation that I am hoping will help to empower them and equip them to really reflect on how they're serving, how them being able to elevate to the next level in what they're doing can impact more people, reach more people, and really bring back the sense of community and this sense of purpose and this sense of connection. Because without connection to self, because you started there, connection to self, we can't have connection with self before we can connect to other people.
Yes.
And we cannot.
I'm going to hold up the finger. When you cross the row in church, you hold up the finger and you put your head down.
Yes.
I hope that we get to a point in this conversation where we can talk about what I call the epigenetics of money.
Let's do it right now.
Okay.
Let's do it.
It's a thing. Now, this is something that Black folks and people of color need to understand. There is a part of us, it is in our DNA. There is a part of us that the reason we experience some of the financial challenges that we experience, it's not us. And I want to choose my words carefully because I know how my mouth can be.
Be Lena.
I am, but I'm also gonna keep it high level. There's also a part of us in our DNA that understands that when you buy the house, they might come get it because eminent domain. When you build the community, they might burn it down because jealousy and because hatred. When you have the family and the picket fence and all the things, they might come and burn a cross on your lawn. This is real. And this is when you say money psychology, I'm always clear about to whom I'm speaking, because with Black folks, it's a multi-layered conversation.
Absolutely. Yes.
Okay. It's the conversation that needs to happen in the world. And then there's the conversation that needs to happen within and about us and what our experience is. And if you have uneasiness about money, I am here to tell you that might not all be because you don't understand financials or spreadsheets.
Right.
That might be because you know the story.
Right.
You know the history. And that history is within us. It doesn't mean that you have to let it run the show.
Yeah.
But the epigenetics of money is real. It is there.
It is there.
And it is something that we need to navigate and something that we need to handle. How dare you have a nicer dress than me? How dare you have nicer jewelry than me? How dare you have anything that I have to think is either a gift or given or stolen? We got to have that conversation in and among ourselves. And this is why I say your environment and the people you have in your orbit is so important, because unless you have people in your orbit that are going to say to you, if you are a Black woman listening to this, that are going to say to you, sis, is there a part of you that fears that if you have it, they're going to come get it? Whatever come get it looks like.
Right.
Because come get it with us could look like I said, eminent domain. It could look like anything.
Yeah.
It could look like they sue you. It could look like lawsuit. It could look like anything. So if there's any part of you that has that fear there, deal with it. It's
Absolutely.
real.
Yeah.
It's a real thing, and it's in us and it's in our DNA.
And I'm always going to be the one, Lena, who brings in guests such as yourself to have these kinds of conversations, because these are things that I've personally navigated myself in. You know, I grew up in a town with two stoplights, and I love my family, my community, my educators, and I thank God for what my, grandparents and great great grands passed down to us. And I'm also grateful for the people that I have met along my journey of my vehicle was academia. My vehicle was travel. My vehicle was also curiosity and the willingness to grow and to be uncomfortable with the uncomfortable, to step outside the comfort zones. And I never will forget where I've come from. And because of that, I think that I can easily identify within other people when they're struggling with things like this, and when they're struggling with, even if it's someone that I've known in my past and they see me 20 years later and it's you remember the old Felicia and not the Felicia of today, not the Felicia that, and it's not about the accomplishments, but it's about the journey and what I've learned through those accomplishments
And who you've become.
and who I've become. And, I when you were talking earlier about you like the things that you like your space to be a certain way and to represent a certain thing. That is something that we have in common, which I'm sure we knew that as well. But we have certain preferences because we've been able to look at and then honor the work that we've put in. And I know I deserve so much. I do. And for some people, it's hard for them to say to themselves what they deserve or what their business deserves or what their family deserves and what their community deserves. And I'm going to be disruptive enough to come in here and to invite you in here as well. And I would say we are going to be disruptive enough to say, these are the realities. This is what your family may have gone through. This is what you may have experienced as a business owner or as someone who tried to partner with another business and it didn't work out. These are the realities of what that person or that leadership team may have experienced in addition to money, but also the jealousy, the envy, the who's going to take credit, the I'm not going to take responsibility or accountability for my mistakes and I'm just going to pass the buck and hope you don't address it, right? Like all of that is
That part.
it all comes full circle because, we can't say that someone with great financial success also has great emotional intelligence or also has great intentions. We're not saying that. We're saying that when you are intentional, reflective, and purposeful in taking ownership of your own stuff,
Yes.
you can then approach these things with a bit more confidence. And that makes all the difference. All of the difference. I'm so glad you introduced the epigenetics of money and money story and what that means for people because I feel like we're gonna have to have another conversation, Lena. I'm so serious. Like we could just keep going and going because we didn't even get to the part where, we're talking about leveling, like what does it mean for your business to partner on a contract? What does that mean for people? What does it mean to bring in the talent and the folks who may be a contractor or a consultant into your world and making sure that you're going to be a good steward of that relationship? What does it mean when you bring those people in and then you fumble the relationship? And then eventually the bag too. What does that mean?
It happens.
It happens.
It happens.
It happens. It happens. Well, Lena, as we close, considering connection, collaboration, community, the ecosystem that thrives, what is it that you would like to leave with the audience today?
Is my greatest hope that folks will listen to, consume, whatever way they do, this episode and see the spirit with which you and I engage, and use that as a barometer for your relationships, and for for who and how you allow people into your orbit. We started this podcast off, and we'll go full circle. Both of us started this episode off with the fact that we met each other, and it was like, who's this woman? I'm down.
Yeah.
Like, what do we do? What's next?
Yeah.
And me just recognizing your innate wisdom and your experience, your lived experience, your professional experience, and wanting to learn from that. And I've been doing what I do for 17 years. Matters not.
Matters not.
Matters not.
No.
Because you can learn from almost anybody if you're open to that. And so I would say, when you think about collaborating, do so with the spirit of reciprocity. Do so with the spirit of, how do I introduce this person to the people in my orbit who I know, and how can I make connections, and how can I, fast forward them or frontline them to people I know. Do it with the spirit of generosity, of giving, of sharing, and whatever energy you're picking up from this transmission, and I use that word intentionally,
yes, that
Felicia and I have had today, recognize that energy that you feel, recognize that as a value that you hold, and that's how next level needs to feel for you. And if it doesn't feel like that or better, bounce.
Oh, so good, Lena.
Thank you.
Oh, so good. So powerful. We will be back with Lena again. Lena and I will be working together very soon, and I just can't wait for you all to hear more from her, to learn more from her, and to utilize the tips that she has shared with us today. Thank you again, Lena.
Thank you, Felicia, for having me. Thank you, everyone, for listening.
Before we go, how can people find you and connect with you if they want to do that directly?
Yeah, the best thing is to grab me on LinkedIn, and there you'll be able to find out more about CEO Rising and our flagship programs. You'll be able to subscribe to our newsletter, all those things. If you look me up, I'm Lena West on LinkedIn. I'm the only one with braids on LinkedIn. Named Lena West.
Thank you, Lena. Hey, Changemaker, real quick before you go, if today's episode helped you in some way, the best way to thank me is to head over to Apple Podcasts, subscribe to the channel, and leave a review. I'd also love to connect with you over on social. You can find me at Friends Call Me Fee. Until next time, keep